This is Dan White, and this is my preview of the Miami and North Carolina game coming up Saturday, October 8th.
This is Dan White, and behind me is the old Walnut Grove African American School from 1920. Some hunters found it out in the woods, and it was disassembled and reconstructed and brought here to Appling, Georgia. Now, this old schoolhouse reminds me of education in the basics, reading, writing, and arithmetic. And also, it was where discipline was meted out to the young children. And so it is with Miami during the bye week last week. Instruction was given, discipline in the form of repetition was meted out to prepare for Saturday's game against the North Carolina Tar Heels. This is my preview of the Miami and North Carolina game this Saturday at 4 o'clock at Hard Rock Stadium with a guest appearance by my expert prognosticator, which will come at the end of my narrative. North Carolina is 4-1 with notable wins over Notre Dame 45-32 and Virginia Tech 41-10. North Carolina is tied with Duke for first place in the Coastal Division with a 1-0 record. This will be Miami's first ACC matchup. Before the season, Miami was a hot pick to win the Coastal and can win it if Coach Mario Cristobal, his staff, and players can get their act together. As I stated in my Middle Tennessee postgame video, I'm not making any more predictions because I was so wrong. I had predicted a 45-14 Miami victory. So I'm bringing in a guest prognosticator to predict the winner. Stay tuned. She will make a prediction at the end of my discussion. And it's not my wife. No Coastal Division team is undefeated. North Carolina, Pittsburgh, and Duke are all 3-1 this season. Now anything can happen. Tech, of all things, upset number 24 Pittsburgh at Heinz Field this past Saturday, 26-21. And they are 1-1 in ACC play, and Pitt is now 0-1. The one common opponent that we've had is Appalachian State. Last season, Miami held on to beat the Mountaineers 25-23. And this season, North Carolina won a squeaker over App State 63-61 in spite of, get this, in spite of the Mountaineers scoring a stunning 40 points in the fourth quarter. Now, neither team, Miami or North Carolina, is ranked in the latest top 25 poll, AP. The ESPN matchup predictor has Miami at a 67.2 likelihood of winning and North Carolina with a 32.8 chance of winning. Caesars Sportsbook has North Carolina favored by 7.5 points. Now, Miami lost to the Tar Heels last year in Chapel Hill when Grayson Atkins hit a 48-yard field goal with 48 seconds left in the game after Tyler Van Dyke threw an interception. Miami enters this game with a record of 2-2 with losses to Texas A&M 17-9 because we couldn't score a touchdown in the red zone. And with an embarrassing and humiliating loss to Middle Tennessee by a score of 45-31. And Middle Tennessee went out and promptly lost to University of Texas, San Antonio, 45-30. Can you believe that? Miami comes in with only a 22% passing completion rate and averaging 179 yards rushing with a 4-yard average and 2.8 touchdowns rushing the ball. On defense, the Canes are giving up an average of 251 yards through the air, but only 87.5 yards rushing. Tyler Van Dyke has thrown for 809 yards with a lamentable 59% passing rate, 4 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions, 2 of which occurred in a matter of seconds in the Middle Tennessee game. That was awful. Van Dyke was benched in the third quarter last Saturday for Jake Garcia. Garcia's season stats are 68% completion rate with 217 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. But in pundit Gary Furman's opinion, Tyler Van Dyke is the best Miami quarterback since, get this now, since Vinny Testaverde. He said, you just can't give up on a talent like TVD. He's had 2 weeks to get ready. I'll be very surprised if Mario changes quarterbacks. Coach Cristobal said on the Joe Rose show this morning, you don't turn your back on your quarterback after he had a bad day. But I think that Coach Cristobal and quarterback coach Frank Ponce fixed his issues during the bye week and that TVD will start this Saturday against North Carolina. Now, in regards to rushing, Ole Miss transfer Henry Parrish Jr. leads the way with 359 yards for an average of 5 yards per carry and 4 touchdowns. He's had 6 receptions for 47 yards and averages 7.8 yards per reception with 1 touchdown. Our big bruising running back, Thad Franklin, is next with 162 yards. He's averaging 4.4 yards per carry with 5 touchdowns and 3 receptions for 27 yards and no touchdowns. He has a 9-yard receiving average. Franklin is a Big Ten type downhill running back. He wears down linebackers, and he is lights out in goal line situations. Our running offense is averaging, believe it or not, 50 more yards so far this season compared to last season. Miami has the same total number of yards averaged this season as last season. That's kind of creepy. It's 448 yards. We have 51 more rushing yards and 51 fewer passing yards than last season. Now that gives me hope, even though Miami has looked pretty hapless this year. Now, we are very slim in the wide receiver room with injuries. It was a tough blow losing Xavier Restrepo to an injury. He was our leading receiver up until he got his injury, and he was TVD's favorite target. He had 172 receiving yards for a 15.6 yard average with 1 touchdown. Now, wide receiver Keyshawn Smith has 10 receptions for 172 yards and is averaging 17.2 yards per reception. He has 2 touchdowns, and we will never forget that spectacular punt return for a touchdown against Middle Tennessee State. Smith has 401 yards on 10 kick returns and is averaging 40 yards per return. The passing game this season compared to last season has shown a drop-off. This year, through 4 games, our passing game has averaged 270.3 yards per game. Last season's average for 12 games was 321 yards per game. In my opinion, the offense, though, has looked better overall under offensive coordinator Jason than last season, with the exception, of course, of the Middle Tennessee game. We'll see how it goes against North Carolina. Gaddis's offense at Michigan last year averaged 443 yards for the season. I'm just hoping that he can bring his magic to Miami. Miami is rushing for 178 yards per game. Last season, it was 127.5 yards per game. That's 12 games from last year compared to 4 this year. And I also think that the offensive line has improved too under coach Alex Mirabal. On defense, linebacker Corey Flagg Jr. and defensive back James Williams have been rock-solid performers. Flagg has 13 solo tackles and 10 assists. Williams has 10 solo tackles and 9 assists. And our kicking game is solid. Andres Borregales has made 17 of 17 extra point kicks. He has made 7 of 9 field goals. His field goal percentage is 77.8. And punters Lou Hedley and Will Anderson, what can you say about them? They continue to be a weapon for Miami. Hedley has punted 6 times and has an average of 46 yards per kick. Will Henderson, who replaced Hadley because of an injury, has 3 punts for an average of 47 yards. So Miami is 2-2. But let's compare this to Howard Schnellenberger when he took over. The Canes were 5-6 in 1979, his very first year. Year 2, they went 9-3. Year 3, 9-2. The 4th year, 7-4 in 1982. And was anyone calling for his job after he went 7-4? But then in 1983, it all came together. Miami went 11-1 and won the national championship. And this was the first of 5 national championships for Miami. Now, Miami's return is not going to happen in 6 months. Coach Cristobal is taking over a program that was really, really bad. I mean, bad. Recruits need to understand that, and I think they do. Mario is selling the future to them. They can't look into the past. For Miami to get back into the news, they have to win. Pundit Kirk Herbstreit said correctly, when Miami is winning, everything is better. When they were winning in the 80s and early 90s, it was all about the U. Patience is needed, especially the first month of the season. It should not define any coaching staff. You have to give these guys time to fix their issues, especially the ones they inherited. It takes sometimes years to get their recruits on the field. And W's will be the selling point because recruiting is everything. And remember, Coach Cristobal and his staff will absolutely not stand for mediocrity. They won't stand for it. Against North Carolina's air raid offense, we have to see a much better version of Miami's defense than the one we saw against Middle Tennessee's pass-happy offense. North Carolina has scored 16 touchdowns with only 1 interception, and they can run the ball if needed. This game has the potential, unfortunately, to embarrass Miami at home. Stopping them is going to be awfully tough, and the best we can hope for is to slow them down and limit their big plays. We also cannot help North Carolina by getting personal fouls, jumping off sides, and committing stupid penalties. Miami's defense is going to have a huge game. They have a tough task against the Tar Heels this Saturday. If they are not up to snuff, Miami can put up 500 yards on them. North Carolina is averaging, get this, North Carolina, you want to guess? North Carolina is averaging 507 yards of total offense per game. That's 6th in college football and number 1 in the ACC. They averaged 319 passing yards per game, and that's where Miami's defense looked the most vulnerable against Middle Tennessee. We gave up more than 400 passing yards against Middle Tennessee. Miami needs to play, in my opinion, less man-to-man coverage and more zone coverage. We saw what happened in the Middle Tennessee game when DJ Ivey got torched playing time and time again. He got torched time and time again. The defensive coaches will need to disguise coverages and keep quarterback Drake May guessing. This is a huge week for our defensive coordinators and coaches. A huge week. But not only for them, but for our secondary. Do we really have the talent to match up with North Carolina? North Carolina's offense is an air raid on steroids, and I don't think we can stop them. They get the ball out quick and pass well. Miami's defense must make some key critical stops and have a bend but don't break defense, and then we have to force a couple of turnovers. Now, we're going to get stung, but we have to make North Carolina drive the ball, and we have to avoid giving up their big plays. We've got to make them grind it out. Don't give up the big plays, but this won't be easy. We can't let the game get out of hand like we did with Middle Tennessee State, which we played from behind the whole game. Miami's secondary will have to play their best game, and in my opinion, Miami's secondary coaches are as good as they get. But here's the question. Does Miami have the personnel on defense to stop North Carolina's air raid? Right now, I don't think they could stop a cold. We can't afford a shootout going up and down the field, scoring points on practically every possession like in a basketball game. But North Carolina will get their yards and their points. Miami will have to score at least in 30s to win the game and control North Carolina's air attack. Hopefully, Miami players will have healed by Saturday. Henry Parrish Jr. is dealing with a minor injury, as is Jalen Knighton, who's been dealing with injuries throughout the season. If Thad Franklin is our only scholarship back, the running game is going to be difficult to get going. He's an inside the 20 type running back. Oh, how we need Rooster and Parrish and Franklin. We need all three. And we need the offensive line to return to the success that they had in the first couple of games. Also, we need Tyler Van Dyke to connect with his receivers, and we need the receivers to catch the dadgum ball. They have been too many drop passes. In fact, in my opinion, one drop pass is one too many. So what's it going to take to get TVD going? He missed a lot of wide open receivers in the Middle Tennessee game, and our receivers dropped a lot of passes. His confidence was shaken. His throws weren't crisp. Productivity is everything, and with Restrepo out, our passing production went way down. Somebody's going to have to step up at receiver, tight end, or another wide receiver, somebody. Word has it that TVD will start Saturday. His field passing game, if successful, will establish the running game. The only way to keep North Carolina from stacking the box like Middle Tennessee did is to get the passing game going. Got to. Middle Tennessee had 9 guys in the box for the whole game. They had no respect for Miami's passing game because Miami simply didn't have an effective passing game. Now, North Carolina is going to play a base defense to begin with and wait and see what happens. The running game is all that Miami has proven that they can do. So you can count on that North Carolina will try and shut down the run by stacking the box. Unless Miami can establish an effective passing game, it will be like giving North Carolina the keys to the house. Miami has to be successful throwing up the field, and they have to make some big plays. They have to get North Carolina out of that box because they are bigger, stronger, and faster than Middle Tennessee's was. They have to make North Carolina's linebackers back off the line. North Carolina's secondary, however, does appear a little vulnerable. Right now, we don't have a vertical breakaway threat at the receiver position. That's why Keyshawn Smith needs to be heavily featured, but Keyshawn Smith sometimes gets the dropsies. And what of Mallory at tight end? He also drops balls, and his concentration level is sometimes not there. The passing game failures is on the receivers and not the coaches. It's a player personnel problem. Now, the running back situation will iron itself out. The running back situation will iron itself out when TVD or Jake Garcia and the receivers start completing passes. Miami cannot afford any turnovers in this game like we had against Middle Tennessee. None. North Carolina will capitalize on them in a skinny minute, and Miami can't get behind or play from behind like we did against Middle Tennessee. We know the results of that. And now let's talk about North Carolina. First, North Carolina is the second leading scorer in the ACC. Wide receiver Josh Downs is the best in the ACC. And here's a clip of his highlights from last year.
There is Downs again. He's got wonderful speed. Josh Downs inside the 10, touchdown. Oh, doctor.
For Josh Downs, and just like that, we got a ball game. I don't know if you're going to see big number 75 throw that block, but that's the block that basically freed Josh Downs.
Second down 10. He'll fire short. And that one complete to Downs. Downs take it off. Downs going to keep on running for the end zone. He is in for the touchdown. Josh Downs back around the 35-yard line to receive here for North Carolina. Punts have been short tonight. Downs will take this one. He'll start it from the 25. Great speed. An electrifying player across the 40. Has some blocking. Getting down the sideline.
Downs the man in motion. It's an end around, and Downs looks like he's going to throw for it. Flips it in the back of the end zone, and the trick play works. Antoine Green off the Josh Downs end around wide receiver pass scores the 2.
Howell on 3rd and 2. Carolina to throw. Slant route. You know who. Breaking free. Josh Downs. Touchdown Carolina.
Katie with that run, 38 runs of 10 yards or more for Howell. This time he's going to take a shot deep. Has Downs. Caught.
North Carolina defense can't stop the run, but our running backs are banged up. This game is really the Super Bowl for Carolina. Miami has to show up and play, but they're going to come after us. They're going to blitz a little and go all out. North Carolina has been preparing for Miami, from what I've read and heard, since before their game with Virginia Tech, because obviously Miami is an important game. After all, it's the U. In my Middle Tennessee pregame video, I predicted that Miami would win 42-14. but what do I know? I said that I wouldn't make any more predictions except that Miami might make it to the Toilet Bowl in Shreveport with a 6-6 record. So, I've brought in a guest who will predict the winner of the Miami and North Carolina game. Her name is Sophie, and she is all new at this. She sits on the couch with me and watches all the Miami games. And no, she's not my wife. Here she is. Meet Sophie.
Okay, over here, I'm gonna pick, see which one Sophie says is gonna win. In this dish is North Carolina. In this dish is Miami. Sophie's ready, I'm ready. And I know that you're all excited about seeing who's going to win. All right, Sophie, go for it.
Go get it, Soph.
And she's so smart. She picks Miami. Sophie, brilliant pick. Yes. Miami will win this game. Thank you, Sophie. And you get to keep the treat.
Tomorrow. Thanks for watching.